Shalom, everybody, and welcome back to Rav Noson's discourse in the Likutey Halakhot, section Orach Chaim, the laws of Nefilat Apayim, discourse number 4. We're now beginning section paragraph 21. After Rav Noson has gone into the 4 parshiot before Purim, after Purim, before Pesach, and we left off finalizing with Parshat HaChodesh, the parsha read before the month of Nisan, and we went into the sun and the moon and its rectification, especially through the mitzvah of Kiddush Birkat HaLevana with joy. So Rav Noson now digresses to the concept, the amazing concept of Chatzot, midnight. Okay? This is something fascinating and maybe new to many people, but there is a concept of waking up at midnight. And there's a major significance. When we say midnight, first of all, it's not 12 o'clock midnight, it's halachic midnight. Halachic midnight, Rabbi Nachman in his book Likutey Moharan, this being the only place in breslov literature, in Likutey Moharan basically, that Rabbi Nachman puts his foot down and agrees to one opinion in halacha. He states, there's a few opinions, he holds by the second opinion that midnight, halachic midnight in heaven, is always 6 hours after the beginning of nighttime, nightfall. There's sunset, which is shkia, and it's followed by nightfall. Each place has a different time for nightfall, and also there's different customs as to when nightfall actually begins. 3 small stars, 3 medium stars, 3 big stars, whatever. There's different customs. Each person should try to find out what his custom is and follow by it. But whatever it is, that's nightfall. And you count 6 hours after that time. So say, for example, nightfall is at 7:12 p.m. So that means halachic midnight would be at 1:12 p.m. Okay? What's unique about midnight, Rav Noson is going to go into right now. There's many things, of course. There's the common custom to wake up to mourn over the destruction of the temple. Rav Noson, he's going to mention a different facet of the concept of Chatzot. Chatzot, based on what we spoke earlier about the sun and the moon, and our mission of rejoining them, that the moon and sun should work together with simcha and joy and with love and happiness in both being the part of creation of redifa and me'akev, which is the running of the intellect to pursue God, and then the being delayed, pushed back, and how both together work together to allow mankind to perceive Hashem's infinite light in this world. Okay, we by every month as the Jewish people do the blessing of the new moon, sanctifying the new moon, and try to increase and put joy in the moon's role of being diminished and then expanding to full moon and then diminished again, and accepting it with joy by us doing the blessing over it with simcha, so that it, with a positive attitude, partakes in the process of perceiving and not perceiving, as both being needed together to perceive God in this world. Okay, so you think that's enough? Great. But there's another thing called Chatzot. Midnight, believe it or not, is the one point of every day in this existence that we have in this world where the moon and sun join together. That's really weird, because midnight is the darkest part of the night. It's like the middle of the night where it's really dark. And yet, like the Zohar teaches, the Kabbalah teaches, Rabbi Nachman teaches, Rav Noson teaches, that's the beginning of the light of the upcoming day. You would think the beginning of the next day's light is when the sun rises, sunrise, right? Netz, alot hashachar, dawn, sunrise, that's the beginning of the day. No, the real day begins at midnight. What's the thing here? That even though it's still dark, really, it's time that the sun is shining with that darkness. Okay? Until now, we saw that the sun is stable, it's always shining, and the moon is diminishing. Here, it's where it's nighttime, and yet the sun is considered shining its effect in the darkness of the night. What in the world? That while it's still dark, and especially dark, the darkest part of the night, which is midnight, that is when a person perceives the most in his perception. Like we taught many times earlier, like we said based on Rabbi Nachman's lesson, Likutey Moharan 24, you think perception comes when you're advancing, when you're pursuing, because you're pursuing to understand. No, true perception comes when you're pushed back and you're thrown into darkness, and the sihachoshech, the darkness, the darkest part of the darkness, that's when a person really perceives in life. That's the phenomenal teaching here. Okay, this happens at midnight. That even though it's night corresponds to the moon. Rav Noson's going to say that's because that's when the moon shines. The moon shines at nighttime, so night corresponds to the light given to the night from the moon, and day corresponds to the sun because the light of the day is coming from the sun. Midnight is, even though it's dark, still it's the meeting point of the sun and the moon, meaning that the perception that a person is seeking to perceive God in his life, so that to alleviate his situations, to resolve his situations, to overcome his battles and his struggles in trying to fight the Yetzirah to come back to Hashem, okay, this opening takes place at midnight. This is why it is such a big thing, and unfortunately by most people, by even most Jewish people, by most religious people, the concept of getting up midnight is like something which is not even talked about, not even spoken about, not even stressed, even though it's in the code of Jewish law. It's the opening law in the code of Jewish law where a person should wake up early and suggested at midnight in order to mourn over the temple. But there's this concept of getting up in order to experience this light of midnight. Okay? This is the concept of chatzot. Fortunate is the person who has this in his mindset, in his aspiration, to wake up at midnight. It's not easy, especially for a husband, for a father, person who has a working job and he has funny hours and there's things to do and errands, being a human being. And yet, it is a merit that a person try to connect somehow to midnight. If it's once a month, once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever. A fortunate person who can get up every night, but to experience chatzot. It's a time when the sun and the moon meet and work together on a daily basis. It's one thing once a month where we're trying to imbue simcha into the moon by sanctifying it and blessing it with joy. And it's another thing, once that's done, to actually experience in this world, before the final redemption, already a taste of the future redemption, where day and night join and work together. This is midnight. With all this said, let's take a look how Rav Nosson now introduces this concept of chatzot, which again he digressed from speaking about Parshat HaChodesh, the parsha before the month of Nisan, of sanctifying the new moon and the month of Nisan, etc. So he digresses now into this amazing concept of chatzot. So Rav Nosson says like this, 21. V'zeh bechinat chatzot laila. This, like he's going to explain further, is the concept of the middle of the night. Chatzot translates as half. Chatzot is chatzi. So the half of the night, which is the middle point, the midpoint is midnight. Again, halachic midnight, not 12 o'clock on your watch. Not midnight on 12:1200, no, or 0000. Okay? She'az haya ikar geulat Mitzrayim. We want to see this in context of the redemption from Egypt. If you take a look in the Chumash, Parshat Bo, you'll see that the real beginning of the redemption started at midnight. Let's take a look at the verses. This is Parshat Bo, right before the final plague of the 10 plagues of smiting the firstborn of Egypt. So Paro warns Moshe, go, don't come back again. For next time you come, you'll be put to death. So at that point, Moshe Rabbeinu received a prophecy while in Egypt in front of Paro. There's on the side, it's a question, if now, until now, Hashem spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu when he left the cities in Egypt, because the cities in Egypt were filled with idols. All the more so Paro's palace was filled with idols. So how could this final prophecy be given in the palace of Paro where there's a lot of idolatry? So the commentaries, they say that Hashem lifted up Moshe Rabbeinu 10 hands breadths above the earth. So he's technically not in that airspace of the idolatry in the city, in the palace of Pharaoh. And that's when Hashem revealed this prophecy. Okay? So the prophecy that Hashem told Moshe, and he spoke it in front of Paro, and he spoke it also later in front of the Jewish people. And again, this is before the night of Pesach. Vayomer Moshe, Ko Amar Hashem. Moshe said, thus has Hashem said, because he's receiving this prophecy right now. Kachatzot halayla, at about, Moshe, well, that's another thing why it says Kachatzot, we'll go into that afterwards. At about midnight, the midpoint, the half point of the night, Ani yotze betoch Mitzrayim. So says Hashem, at approximately the midnight, I will come out into Egypt. And when I do that, the next verse number 5, this is chapter 11, right? Chapter 11, verse 4, and we're now chapter 11, verse 5. Umet kol bechor be'eretz Mitzrayim, and will be put to death every firstborn in the land of Egypt. Bechor Paro, from the firstborn of Paro, hayoshev al kiso, sitting on his throne. Ad bechor shivcha, until the firstborn of the maidservant in Egypt, asher achar harechaim, who is after grinding, doing the work of grinding the wheat. V'chol bechor be'eman, also every firstborn of the animals will be put to death. V'haita, verse number 6, V'haita tza'aka gdola bechol eretz Mitzrayim, and there will be a crying and screaming, a great tumult of screaming in the whole land of Egypt. Asher kamo lo niyata v'chamo lo tosiv. That until now, at this point in history, there was never such a screaming like this, and there will no longer be after this, because it will be like this, the climax of crying from the Egyptian people. Ulechol bnei Yisrael, verse number 7, Ulechol bnei Yisrael lo yecheratz kelev, and to all of the children of Israel, not a single dog will sharpen its mouth to bark. Lishono, so I had to do that, sorry. Right? Lemeish ve'ad behema, from man to animal of the Israelis, of the Jewish people, no dog will bark, like when leaving. Leman ted'un, so that you should know, asher yafle Hashem ben Mitzrayim uven Yisrael, that Hashem has separated between the Egyptians and Israel, the Jewish people. Ve'ardu chol avadecha ele elai, and Moshe is saying in front of Paro, and all of your servants will bow, will descend to me, to Hashem in other words, v'ishtachavu li lemor, and will bow to me. It's also to Moshe Rabbeinu. Bow to me, saying the following. And Rashi says he's referring to Paro himself. You will come bending to me, saying the following. Tse ata, leave, exit, go, you, v'chol ha'am asher b'raglecha, and all the nation who are at your feet, Moshe Rabbeinu, who will follow you. That's the whole Jewish nation. V'acharei chen etzeh, and only after that happens will I leave. Vayatze me'im Paro b'achorei af. And Moshe, finishing this prophecy, left from before Paro with anger that he said to him that he's going to kill him if he comes back again. But this prophecy was given in front of Paro, before the final plague of the smiting of the firstborn, and that it says here that at this point we will leave. So this Rav Nosson is saying that midnight is really the beginning of the redemption, because this took place at midnight, and that'll be the final straw to hit down, and that'll be the final point that the Jews can actually leave. So that means the leaving of Egypt, meaning redemption, took place at midnight. Midnight has a big part. That's what Rav Nosson is showing using this source, that midnight has a part in the redemption. So let's look inside again. Shezeh ikar geulat Mitzrayim. Midnight was the essence of the redemption of Egypt, like we just saw now. Kumo shekatu, like the verse says, like we just saw in chapter 11, verse 4. Kachatzot halayla ani yotze betoch Mitzrayim. At about midnight of night, I will be coming out, Hashem says, into Egypt. So he explains now, Rav Nosson, what's the connection? Ki yom v'layla habechinat chama ulevana. On a daily experience, we all go through it. We have a day and night. Okay? Day and night correspond to the role of the sun, where its functionability is apparent on the day, and night, which is the functionability of the moon. That's when the moon shines its light at night. So every day we have access to sun and moon. Everybody, every creature existing, every person living in this world has a connection to the sun and the moon through the daily experience of day and night. Okay? And by saying that, so the sun, the day, represents the faculty of the sun, which is to perceive, perception of godliness, because it's rooted in the infinite light. Like we said, Rav Nosson said earlier in the previous paragraph that it's like a beacon representing infinite light shining. That's the idea of light in this world, in this existence that we have, light and darkness. Okay, and the moon is shining onto us the idea of retracting, refraining, being bounced back from that light experience. And like we said again and again and again, both are part of the picture, both are needed, and they need to work in harmony and symphony, day and night. Okay, and that's part of the redemption also, which we went into the last class. That the Geula has a part in, like we said, they mentioned this verse that with simcha of leaving Egypt. I just want to see it inside. The mitzvah of kiddush, sanctifying the moon, which is simcha, was mentioned in the redemption, because all this is connected. Let's see inside more. Okay. That sun and moon are drawn from, like you said, the two aspects mentioned above. The idea of the running of the mind to pursue, that's the sun, and the me'akev, like we just explained now, the retracting of the light, which is the moon, and how both are needed to function together, like we said before in paragraph 20. That it's true specifically, both together, sun and moon, perceiving and not perceiving, being pushed back, specifically through both of them. That's how a person perceives godliness in the format, like where the Rav Nosson is quoting from the Zohar, Parshat Noach, page 65a, Matei velo matei. Everything has to be in and out, touching and not touching. Matei means to reach, to touch. Velo matei, and not reaching, not touching. That's how it is. You're in and out, and that's it. It's never fixed in, but never fixed out. It's in and out. You need both. Okay? Bivchinat, this being the idea, and Rav Nosson is quoting concepts mentioned by Rabbi Nachman in lesson 24, Likutey Moharan. This famous quote Rabbi Nachman brings there, and also many other places in Breslov literature. Tachlit hayediah asher lo neda kanizkar le'el. The goal of knowing is not to know. In our context, the goal of perceiving the sun is to get to the moon. To get to the moon is the goal of the sun, because that's where you're going to perceive true perception. There's light that it seems you're perceiving, you're advancing, but you're not there yet. You haven't tapped into the infinite light. It's only once the moon comes into play, that's when the perception given by the sun is received in a person. It's dafka, specifically in the darkness. And that's tachlit hayediyah, the goal of knowing, which is like idea of clarity, awareness, the sun. The goal of that, asher lo neda, is not to know. You should know that your goal is to get to the dark part of the situation, of the scenario of life, and in there to receive your awareness, God willing. Okay, we'll stop here, and we'll continue, God willing. As Rav Nosson adds more and more steps in developing these ideas. Again, if your feedback is always appreciated. You can reach out to me by WhatsApp only, please. Number is +1 732 800 1863. 732 800 1863. Thank you for joining. Shalom, shalom, and be well.